Hey, welcome to Integrative Preparedness. I'm Steve Smith. We're going to take a break from all the serious business that's going on and we'll be talking about the last few videos. I guess YouTube didn't like my last one that I put up last night or this morning. They gave me kind of a hard time on it, but it's still up. If you'd like to see it, it's about the coming crisis, and I suggest you do watch it. But today, we're going to get around to one I've been meaning to do for a little while, uh, and it's about cowboy hats and rancher wisdom and things like that. Uh, I was surprised. Now, some time ago, and I don't remember when it was. It's been some months ago. I made one on cowboy hat etiquette and superstitions and things like that, and I got more comments on that thing. I didn't figure more than a handful of people would watch it, but it thousands have watched it, and and I've gotten so many comments and emails from not just here but all around the world from people asking different things and saying and telling me about their experiences getting their first cowboy hat and asking me if they can wear one even if they're from New Jersey. If you're watching this, how you doing, buddy? I hope you're wearing your hat in good health. So I wanted to make another one that kind of gives a warning about some of the dangers of wearing a cowboy hat, especially if you're in the city or suburbs. Now, I'm going to start this off with a comment. I wrote this down. Uh, it was a neat comment, and it kind of gives you an idea of what happens. And I'm going to expand on this. He says, "I just purchased my first cowboy hat a few weeks ago. I've never been treated better or talked to more by complete strangers. You get the occasional stupid comment. Yeah, I know, like, where's your horse and hey Tex and things like that. Well, those are people that just need something to say. But you would be surprised at the love and kindness you receive." That's true. That's one of the dangers. "You are completely correct," he continues, "about the state of our country and the positive power of the most American head cover." Thank you, buddy. I won't give your name because I don't know if you want me to, but I hope you're watching. Thank you for that, and you're exactly right. And in that previous one, what he's referring to there is, and I talked about that there's probably no piece of apparel that is more associated with the American spirit than the cowboy hat. And when a person wears it, like my buddy Mark said, when I gave him his. There are certain things that when you see it, you associate with it. Individualism, rugged individualism, a sense of honor, of hard work. Now, it's not always the case. There's some bums that wear cowboy hats, but you do have that certain idea that's associated with it, and it's about America. It's about independence. Uh, Now, I'm going to read off a list of kind of old sayings. Before I do that, a great warning. Here is a warning to anybody that is considering buying and wearing a cowboy hat. Okay? And this actually applies more in areas to where they're not seen as often, like in the cities and the suburbs. And these are, I tell you this from my personal experience. You get out, and now I know that, our country has become more of a cap country than a hat country over the last 30 or 40 years. I'm not sure why that is. I guess if I thought about it, I could come up with an idea. But, there are certain states that are more caps than hats. Missouri is, in some cases, it's more caps, and Kansas is more hats. Texas, Oklahoma, definitely more hats. If you get out west, it's more hats, and when you get back east, it's more caps. But I talked about the reasons for each. This A cap. Maybe I'll do one. I could talk quite a bit on why caps came to be popular, but maybe I'll leave that for a different one. They won't do what a hat will do. Okay, you can walk around in the rain in a cap, and guess what? You get wet. You walk around in the rain unless your head stays dry. But I'm going to stay off of that. The dangers of wearing a cowboy hat in a situation where people aren't used to seeing them all the time, suburbs and cities. There is a danger that people are going to treat you politely. They're going to be courteous. You'd be surprised how often I'm walking into some place and people hold the door for me, much more when I'm wearing a hat than when I'm not. And the funny thing is, it's not just other guys, it's women. Women will hold the door for you if you're wearing a cowboy hat. And you'd be surprised. It's not just here and there, it's all the time. Other men will hold the door for you. Not just, you know how you're going through a door and a guy goes right in front of you and he kind of holds it for just a second so you can catch it and go through. Now, it's weird, but I'll be standing out. I'll be 20 feet away walking into a place, and a guy will look up and see me coming, and he'll hold the door. Maybe it's because I'm old. I bet some of you out there right now are saying that's because you're an old codger. Nah, well, I don't look that old when I'm walking around. But they'll hold that door open, and they'll nod, and they'll say, sir, and things like that. There is a big danger of people treating you well when you're wearing that. So I'm going to get to a few of, so be careful, be ready to be treated well, and you might get to like it. And then, of course, it brings it out. You treat other people well, and you say thank you and all that, and then the reputation of this just travels, and they'll say, I saw a guy wearing a Stetson today, and he was just the nicest, most polite guy. So I'm going to read a list here of old sayings I thought some of you might get a kick out of, especially our friends in Europe and Australia. And probably in Australia, you have sayings that are a lot like this, except you say them in your way, But I think they left an important one out of here. Some are funny and some are real, but, in all cases, hear that? That's the suburbs. Okay. But like in most things, even the funny ones, there's some truth in them, right? And there's one that I didn't see in here, but I'm going to add, and I'm going to start right off with it so I don't forget. And that is close the gates. Now you'll hear the saying something like, always close gates behind you. I'm going to change that a little bit and say, close the gates that you opened. Okay, in other words, and actually leave gates the way you found them. Okay, if you opened a gate to go through it, shut it behind you. But if you walk through an open gate, leave it there. Leave it open. Otherwise, you might be shutting, if it's not your gate, you don't know what's going on. You might be shutting some cows or horses off from some place that they needed to get to next. So leave the gate the way you found it. And that, you can think of a lot of things in life that would apply to. Say your fences, and I'm sure you all have heard a lot of these. Some of you probably heard all of them. Most of you probably heard some, and maybe some of you haven't heard any. You might get a kick out of them. Maybe even some of them have popped up in my books. Okay, the first, your fences need to be horse-high, pig-tight, and bull-strong. That's right. That means that they need to be able to hold in anything that they're supposed to hold in, right? And different animals need different kinds of fences, but every fence ought to satisfy all of those, and that can also apply to the boundaries of people in your life. Keep skunks and bankers at a distance and hopefully downwind. I put in that last part. It says life is simpler when you plow around the stump. And that's right. When you get to something and it seems like something's in your way, it's a lot easier to go around it than try to go through it. A bumblebee is considerably faster than a John Deere tractor. Now, most cowboys don't ride John Deere tractors, and most bumblebees aren't quite as fast as a horse. But if you're riding a John Deere tractor, I guess this is important to you, and I suppose you can get a life lesson from that is that, it's probably, there's another old saying, speak your mind but ride a fast horse. It means be able to get away from whatever it is you need to get away from. Words that soak into your ears are whispered, not yelled. That's true. That's right. Meanness don't just happen overnight. That's the truth. Meanness comes from a deep well of festering and boiling and simmering and stuff like that. So if you run up on somebody who's mean, you can be sure it's not their first time. They've had practice at it. Forgive your enemies. It messes up their heads. That's kind of biblical. Actually, there is a scripture in there that says something about you forgive your enemies, and by such you'll be heaping hot coals on their heads. Don't corner something that you know is meaner than you. That's the truth. Of course, the thing is there is know how mean you are and understand how mean the thing is that you're trying to corner and decide whether or not it's worth it and who you think's going to come out the winner. And if you think that it's not going to be you, always give that other thing a way out. It don't take a very big person to carry a grudge. That's the truth. And really the grudge, it's a grudge is something we do to ourselves, right? It's like the old saying that anger is how you punish yourself for something that somebody else did wrong. So you carry a grudge. They don't care. They don't feel it. But you have a burden and you need to get rid of it. Now here is a good one. You can't unsay a cruel word. We just had in home church, was it last week or a couple weeks ago, my message to the kids was the tongue, the power of the tongue. And the Bible has a lot to say about the power of the tongue. And we talked about how physical hurts heal, but the hurts that come from the words of someone we love or someone that loves us, those they can last forever. And there's probably nothing more important than keeping a tight rein on your tongue and thinking a long time before you say something and making sure that it's something you want to say and you're willing to carry the burden of that for sometimes a lifetime. Every path has a few puddles. That's right. When you wallow with pigs, expect to get dirty. Now here's a good one. And this kind of applies to something that I said the other day. The best sermons are lived, not preached. You may remember if you saw a few videos ago when I talked about those missionaries who were forbidden to mention Jesus as they served the people, and how they had to live out their message as opposed to using words. So the best sermons are lived, not preached. People won't always hear the things you say, but they'll always see the things you do. It's kind of like there's another saying that I don't even know who said this, but it's so true, is that people won't always remember what you say to them, but they'll always remember how you make them feel. Another one, most of the stuff people worry about ain't never going to happen anyway. That's the truth. There's another saying that worry is the interest we pay on problems that never happen. Don't judge folks by their relatives. Well, yeah, sometimes you can, right? Sometimes you can. It's the old apple falling far from the tree kind of thing, but not. Some of them do fall far from the tree and roll away. So you can judge some by their relatives. I say that's a fair place to start, but it's not a good place to stop. Make sure that you judge everybody according to their own actions. Remember that silence is sometimes the best answer. That's true. Let the person just kind of because your silence gives the other person time to think about what they just said, or it stops you from saying something that you may regret later, or that may be misunderstood as agreement or not. Live a good and honorable life. Then when you get older and think back, you'll enjoy it a second time. Well, I bet there's a lot of us that wish that we had lived more according to that, right? Uh, who of us can say that we've always been good? Don't interfere, but that's great advice. For all of you younger people, grab onto that. I'll say it again for you all. Live a good and honorable life. Then when you get older and think back, you'll enjoy it a second time. Instead of like some of us that when certain memories come back in our heads, we go, ugh, ugh. Don't interfere with something that ain't bothering you none. That's true. Except certain situations. Don't interfere with, I mean, if somebody's getting picked on, if somebody is being harmed by somebody, you've got to. It kind of reminds me of a scene in a John Wayne movie, Big Jake, I think it was, when the Scotsman's about to get hung, and Wayne's up there on the mountain, whatever his character was, Big Jake, and he's looking down a rifle, and this guy is sitting on a horse with a noose around his neck tied to a tree, and this bunch of guys are about to hang him. And Wayne says to himself and his dog, he said, "Nope, ain't gonna do it. I haven't interfered in anything since I was, I don't know, whatever. And I ain't gonna start now." But then things they kicked a kid or something, and he had to, and so he did. But for the most part, don't interfere in stuff that's not your business. But if innocent people are being victimized, I figure that's any good person's business. Timing has a lot to do with the outcome of a rain dance. That's true. If you find yourself in a hole, the first thing to do is stop digging. That's an old one, but a good one. How many people just keep on digging? Sometimes you get, and sometimes you get got. That's kind of, I don't think this was on here, but it kind of reminds me of another one that's not necessarily a cowboy or rancher saying, and that is that that just flew out of my mind. Maybe it'll come back. The biggest troublemaker you'll ever have to deal with watches you from the mirror every morning. Isn't that the truth? How many of the things that we have to deal with, the troubles that we find ourselves in, are of our own making? Either from doing or not doing, right? And then we got to deal with it. Always drink upstream from the herd. Good judgment comes from experience, and a lot of that comes from bad judgment. Isn't that the truth? The difference, as they say, between school and life is that in school, the lesson comes first and then the test, but in life, the test and then the lesson. So, sometimes you find somebody, if people occasionally tell me that I'm wise, it's because I've made so many stupid mistakes. Letting the cat out of the bag is a whole lot easier than putting it back in. True. If you get to thinking you're a person of some influence, try ordering somebody else's dog around. That's the truth. Live simply, love generously, care deeply, speak kindly, and enjoy the ride. I think, for those of us who are old enough, who have kind of traveled through that period of our lives when we thought that being tough and aggressive and whatever was important to you know to whatever to run our lives. We get to the point to where we come to this understanding. So I'll read it again for the enjoyment of those of us old enough to understand it, and for the instruction of those who are still young enough to benefit from it, and that is: live simply, love generously, care deeply, speak kindly, and enjoy the ride. And the last one of my favorites: don't pick a fight with an old man. If he's too old to fight, he'll just shoot you. So anyway, I thought you all might enjoy some of those, especially our friends from across the oceans. Uh, and the big answer for all you guys in Europe and Australia and South America and Canada and New Jersey and anywhere you are, the answer to the question, is it okay for me to wear a cowboy hat, is yes. Okay? You might not be in a situation to where you are out there punching cows, but neither am I. Okay? Neither am I. It's an attitude. It's something that shows the world something. It brings to mind certain values, certain principles that I think we could do well to spread a little bit more on. And you don't need anybody's permission to wear anything that you feel helps to tell the world something about you. So I think I'll stop there. I'll probably make another one someday. Put your comments, because the comments on the last one I did on cowboy hats were just great. Put your comments, put your questions down there. Oh, I'll add something to the first one that I did sometime back, when about superstitions. When I talked about don't overthrow a hat on a bed. Well, anyway, I mentioned to a friend of mine that I had put out a video on that, and he said, "Did you make sure that you told him not to throw a hat on a bed?" And I says, "Yeah, I did." Now, my friend is an old rodeo guy, bronc rider, and he says, "Well, that's good, because whenever we saw somebody throw a hat on a bed, we threw it on the floor, and everybody got a chance to stomp on it before he was able to pick it up again. He had to watch us all stomp on his hat until we were tired stomping on it, because it could mean that the superstition that somebody might get hurt." I think that does it. Anyway, best of you all. Ask your questions. If you want me to, I'll make another one on, because we're getting to felt hat season coming up here pretty soon. Remember, this is a straw. This is a Stetson. There's other good hats out there, Resist All mainly, but there's others. And so if you have any questions, put them down there, comments, and I'll see if I can answer them if somebody else doesn't. And with that, I'll let it go. But I still remind you, even though this wasn't really a preparedness, although proper headgear is good preparedness, that we prepare well today in order to live well tomorrow. And you'd be surprised if you need to walk out in the rain and do some work out in the rain or the snow or something like that. You'll be glad you got one of these instead of a ball cap or a beanie. Okay. Well, you all have a good day. I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.